Buenos dias, race fans, and welcome back to Formula One 2019 as we get ready to head over to Barcelona, Spain for the Spanish GP. We are looking to follow up our best effort of the season at Baku last week, a 14th position that accomplished our team goals. So here we are back in the garage, about to hit up our messages and see what our new team goal is going into next week's race. Looks like we have a qualifying target of 16th or better that we have 2 weeks to go after. We've qualified as high as 18th at one race, I believe, but we did just take another development failure, so that's super helpful, us being the worst car in the grid. You really don't want to see those development failures, but 2 out of 3, you know, I'll take it. We are starting to close up on that Toro Rosso spot to really start to get into the midfield battles. We are still realistically only competing based on our lunges in the first couple of laps while the field is bunched up, and then our ability to just kind of hold people off. So we aren't quite competing with people on pure pace just yet, but we're going to head over to qualifying.
You join us today at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya for what's bound to be a really hectic qualifying as the teams compete to set the best lap times. So then, Ant, it's another Grand Prix weekend, another exciting qualifying session ahead of us. What are you going to be looking out for over the next few minutes?
The first question is going to be who can avoid making mistakes. There isn't much margin for error in qualifying, and you have to bear in mind that the track conditions may have changed since practice, particularly as we've had a few support races in the meantime. If the brake bias settings, for example, don't take this into account, it's extremely easy to lock up a front wheel and cause a flat spot. Just like that, your lap's ruined and you've wasted a set of tyres to boot.
Okay, we know it's going to be a struggle to get out of this session, but give it your best shot.
Alright, so here we are in the garage, making sure we get the correct tires fitted on, and all of our setting tweaks have already been done. We're getting ready to jump out for our first flying lap of the session and a little tour around Barcelona. Now there are a couple spots on this track that your car just gets loose and very slidey for almost no reason. And it always comes after these little left-right. So this first one, if you touch that inside curb on that left, it is very easy to lose the back end and spin. So we're up this decreasing radius right-hander and down this little chute before we head into the braking zone to another right-hander up the hill with a bit of a decreasing radius. Now you're going to come just over this crest and try and hit a braking point to get down to this slow left-hander as we speed down the hill and into the next quick left-right section. So again, as you get on the power off that left-hander, you have the tendency, again, the car just kind of wants to come around on you. And a very tricky cresting the hill. With higher downforce cars, you can almost flat out down, but with our downforce level right there, we got to lift a lot into the final hairpin down the second longest straight and one of the best DRS zones. And this little hump has a tendency to really upset the car before that right-hander. And you can see, got a little on the curb and actually slid the tires a little bit there on our first lap. And then we're in to the final chicane here before we get back on level ground and get on the power through this last right-hander and charge across the line to set our first lap time. After we get back in the garage and hang out for a minute to let the track rubber in and wait, we are finding ourselves in 19th position. Our teammate George Russell is in 16th position. The 16th would be a nice payout in R&D points, so if we can beat George Russell's time, just barely beat our teammate, we should be able to get that point.
96.9 miles per hour.
But here we are finishing up the flying lap as the checkered flag waves. We were one of the last few cars to get on track. And you can see in the top right, we have a huge time delta increase. The track rubbering in plus just a lot cleaner first and second sector has got us hovering around a 1 second improvement. We are going to have a massive improvement. Stuff just hooked up for the car on this lap. And we're going to cross the line and see where we go. We go 15th. So not only do we make and exceed our team goal, this is the first time we are going to make it into qualifying session number 2. The first of either of our cars for this Williams team to make it. As you can see, we just barely edged out Kevin Magnussen in that 16th spot, less than a 10th to make it. So I'm pretty proud of what we did there. It showed some decent one-lap pace. So we'll see what we can do in Q2 here. Alright, so here we are jumping out on our only lap of Q2 on the flying lap here. We are in the last sector mark, about 2.5 seconds down a pole position. And it wasn't really our best lap. We just kind of got a little skittish here and there in a couple of sections, and waiting till the last second there was a bit of a gamble, but I didn't want to burn up the tires on us by running it multiple laps, because if we had gotten any better, we would have had to start on those tires. But we crossed the line after the checkered flag waves, and we are keeping our 15th position, which is not too bad, because now I don't feel guilty about the 5-place grid penalty we'll be taking for the gearbox, putting us at the very back. Basically gives us free reign to take a whole host of grid penalties. New internal combustion, new MGUK, MGUH, energy store, turbocharger. All of that's going to be fresh and new. Like I said, we wanted to take this gearbox penalty especially here rather than trying to push it through Monaco, because we had issues at Monaco. That is not a place you want to be taking grid penalties. It is a very tough track to overtake on, and we definitely don't want to be starting that one any further back than we have to. But here we go. We have all the brand new pieces in our car, so let's get ready to head back out to the grid and get ready for the GP.
What does the Spanish Grand Prix have in store for us today, I wonder? I hope we see some tight wheel-to-wheel action down the main straight, circa Mansell and Senna way back in '91. Or maybe we'll have a more strategic race here on a track where overtaking can be difficult. It's a sellout crowd of 140,000 here today as we await lights out for the 730-metre sprint down to turn 1 of this 2.9-mile racetrack. Overtaking is challenging through these 16 corners, but there's still a lot of high-speed excitement to be found, including the flat-out turn 3 and the terrifying blind right of turn 9. Anthony Davidson is alongside me as usual for the race today. They're still relatively new to a sport which does have a high learning curve and, of course, little tolerance for mistakes.
That's right, it is a difficult environment to come into. In junior categories, you're competing against drivers with similar levels of experience. But some of these guys in Formula One have been there for over a decade. But I have to say, in this case, it's so far so good.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and starting alongside in P2 is Sebastian Vettel. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Bottas, Leclerc, Pierre Gasly and Verstappen, Weber, Sainz, Raikkonen and Lando Norris, Ricciardo, Butler, Nico Hülkenberg and Perez, Magnussen, Grosjean, George Russell and Alexander Albon. Stroll, they've taken a grid penalty and old-timer, and with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
You were expected to be in a higher grid position than this. Let's push hard on the first few laps and move up a few places.
Well, it looks like we're going to be starting alongside our so far short-term rival of Lance Stroll. We always seem to find ourselves battling with him or defending from him. Even though he's showed more pace than us this year, he just strategy-wise always seems to end out kind of near us. And as you heard Crofty during the introduction there, this is a tough track to overtake on. It doesn't have quite the super slow bunched up passing zones like our first few races for us to really take advantage of. So we're going to really struggle to not only get some of those positions up early in the race like we've been doing before, but we're also going to have a bit of a tough time catching people. Like I said, in qualifying we showed very good one-lap pace, but as far as our times throughout the practice sessions and on harder compounds, It's really tough for us. So we're sticking with a one-stopper. Hopefully our strategy will allow us to keep us going, but we get ready to step on the gas and get down the run to the main corner here. As you see, everybody getting away a little quicker than us, that better grip they've got starting off, and just the strength of the AI on the start. So we look around the outside, and as you see, not a huge bunch up in that first corner, a little bit, but not a big passing opportunity. But you see we get a very good run off this long right-hander, but we're just a little too far back to really dive for position. So we've had to slot in here at 19th already, which in a lot of these other races we've been able to dive our way through the first 2 or 3 corners up to, you know, the 14th, 15th position. But, you know, 2 positions on a track that's notoriously tough to overtake on, I'm okay with that start so far. So it's time for us to get ready to settle in and see what we can do. And you see our teammate George Russell right there just ahead of us as we come through the hairpin, and you see Magnussen and Perez going side by side. So their battle in front of us is hopefully going to give us a chance to catch up to them and use their moving roadblock as a chance to get past our teammate George Russell here. So we get ready to come out of the final corner and down the front straight for the first time. This is probably one of the best overtaking opportunities, especially when DRS is active after lap 3 here. We have a quick look because we had a bit of a run on him, but we're going to duck him back into the slipstream as somehow he just showed a bunch of extra traction. You see Magnussen and Perez come together, and a little bit of carbon fiber. Somebody has lost a bit of their wing. And we get a great run off the corner. And so we're going to look to the inside of our teammate George Russell in the corner, and it looks like that was Perez's end plate. As you look on his right side of his wing there, you can see that the end plate appears to be missing. So hopefully that'll give us a chance now to get by him in some of these higher speed corners where he's going to be lacking the downforce to really get the nose around and turned in and get a good run down the straight. So we're just going to kind of settle in, pick his slipstream as much as we can, and hopefully we can jump another position up to 16th. But Albon is attacking us down that straight, and I get a little distracted by him as into that braking zone. I check my mirror and miss my braking point, and as such, he's able to switch back and go down the inside of us coming through the hairpin and get that position back, and we've fallen back to 18th. And now he is going to try and chase down Perez, but we're doing the best we can to stay in contact with him as we one more time get ready to head down the main straight and cross the start-finish line one more time. DRS will be enabled the next detection zone that we head in, and you see Albon looking down the inside of Perez to try and make that position into turn 1, and oh, he locks up and they slam into each other. I'm surprised to not see more damage on Perez's wing. It looks like luckily it was just wheel to wheel, but as I was saying, that's slower corner because he doesn't have the downforce to keep the nose in. Let us get a good run off that straight, and now we're going to get down the inside of him as we battle for that position. You have that alternating pattern, Williams, Racing Point Williams. But here we are jumping ahead to lap 11 as we've only gained up to position 13 thanks to the pit stop starting to shake out. All of the soft compound runners towards the back of the midfield have kind of come in already, so we have a couple of Alfa Romeos behind us. You see I stepped on the throttle a little early there and allowed our old teammate Lucas to catch up with us, and he is right on our tail as we get ready to head down into the final chicane and down to the main straight. But he is putting a lot of pressure on us coming down. We're a little slow out of that exit, but we're going to step on the throttle and see if we can't keep him behind us. But I very, very much doubt it. As he tucks into the slipstream, he's got DRS open, he dives to the inside, and he is well clear of us even before the braking zone. That Alpha has just been so quick and shown such good pace so far this season. It's been probably be one of the next few teams we really look to catch. Obviously the Toro Rosso's our first competition, so if we can start consistently beating them, not just myself, but also George Russell. That'll be kind of the first milestone of the improvement of the car. But as you see, there's the other Alfa Romeo of Kimi Räikkönen catching up behind us as Lucas starts to open up a bit of a gap in front of us. And really, I was just doing my best at this phase to stay in DRS range, try and get as much of that benefit for as long as I could. But you can see he's already out of range. Our wing isn't open down the straight, and here comes Kimi catching up. And as our tires are starting to fall off through this part of the stint, it's mostly just been a goal of trying to hang on to the tires until we get to our pit stop window to swap out onto the hards. But these Alphas on their fresher mediums, I believe they went with a soft medium strategy as opposed to a medium to hard. So they'll be running a softer compound pretty much the whole race. But here comes Kimi down the right side of us. He gets his nose in there a little bit, but backs out as we kind of squeeze him against the apex. He wasn't quite far enough alongside of us to where we necessarily had to respect his claim to the corner. But here we are down the next straight, and he is right on our tail. And Lucas is about 2.5 seconds up on us, so our touch with that group is off. And you can see on the mini-map on the left, there are the 2 orange dots of the McLarens, which are also going to be trying to work their way through back to the midfield battle. They are been running fairly on pace with the Alphas so far this year. Here we are down the next DRS section, and Kimi's got a great run on us. He's got the inside of the line. We're going to do as much as we can to battle. We swing around the outside, leave him the room, and he slings in and gets front. And we actually have a little bit of a touch. We have to back out. He just kept slowing down through that corner, and even off the throttle, I wasn't able to keep from just gently touching his tail end, but it started to spin him out. So we got completely off the throttle to make sure that we didn't ruin his race or our wing. It's one thing to battle for position, it's another thing to just totally wreck someone, and that's just not what we're about. But here we go, Lance Stroll now jumping down the inside of us into turn 1. We have to leave him the space since he's pretty alongside, but he isn't able to make it stick around the outside of turn 1, and we're able to cut to the inside of turn 2, hold him off, at least for now. And you can see those 2 orange McLarens really hunting him down, which is really about the only thing that's keeping Stroll behind us right now, is the fact that he's having to battle with them as well as trying to keep up with us. But you see, tires are really hurting. The fast right-handers really wear out the left tires pretty bad.
Okay, this set of tires is pretty much spent, I think. You should be able to bring a bit more out, but it won't be long before they fall away from you entirely.
And there you hear our engineer saying that the tires are toast, absolutely spent. We should be, if I remember correctly, coming in next time by, as we are battling with Stroll down this section. It's a tough track to overtake on. Even if you're running a couple of tenths faster per lap than the other car, once really getting by them, you have to really have a significant pace advantage. That's why this main straight is really the only big opportunity you have because of the DRS. And we're going to jump forward one more lap as we dive into the pits with Lance Stroll very close in tow still, fighting us the whole way here. We are coming in to slap on a fresh new set of hard tires for the final stint of the race. There we are, a quick smooth stop. No time lost to Stroll, and we are back out onto the track and racing as we streak down into turn 1 and start battling with Stroll once again. And like I said, this guy, even though his cars showed very good pace throughout the whole season, he's qualified typically pretty much better than us. For whatever reason, we find ourselves strategy-wise constantly battling with him. And there you see George Russell, who on the undercut has actually made up a little bit of ground on us, but he was pretty far off the battle, stuck with the McLarens and the Racing Points between us. So here we go, coming through that fast right-hander again down the second DRS section. And you see Stroll getting bigger and bigger on our mirrors as we head into the braking zone for that tight hairpin. And we get ready for this very windy technical section of the end of the lap here. It's very, very tough to overtake through here. It's not a very wide track. A lot of these corners really only fit 2 cars side by side, but we go a little deep. And it's not our best exit, and we spin the tires a little bit on the exit as well. Getting on the power as we get ready to head down the main straight, but Stroll is going to have DRS and just a huge run on us. So we do our best to tuck into the slipstream as he goes by us and try and chase him down and stick with him. Hope he makes a mistake into this next section. We've typically been a little quicker through this fast right-hand corner than a lot of the cars we've challenged, so we have an opportunity to try and catch back up to him. And you see we've closed that gap back down. We are still managing to keep pace with Stroll through this section, but you can see that our teammate George Russell is just outside of that 1 second DRS range. But we're doing everything we can to keep this position. We're definitely not going to have a great race weekend like we did last week at Baku. I would be shocked if we managed to get all the way up to 14th, as now that the pit stops have fully shaken out, we are battling for 17th with Lance Stroll here. But we managed to maintain contact with him throughout this lap, and really, when you don't have a huge pace advantage, that's really the goal, is to just stay in contact for the entire lap until you get down to the front straight. That is by far the best passing opportunity, as we have DRS on him. We're going to tuck into the slipstream, dial up our fuel mixture and our ERS deployment, and do as much as we can to run him down. We're going to look around the outside of him, brake a little later, go deep. We have to really tighten this corner, but we managed to go side by side through that corner with him and get just ahead as we get on the throttle into that long unwinding right-hander. But there we are, back up the position. Was a good 2 solid lap long battle as he got by us down the front straight. We stayed in contact, so we got back by him down the front straight. But here we are, now it's his turn to again do everything he can to stay in contact with us to get down us on that front straight. Although if he does get a good run off of this corner, he can also make it up on us on this second DRS zone. But here we are looking behind, and you see just how much that DRS allows him to close up, but he's not able to get close enough quite into that braking zone, so we managed to hold the position off. We cut back in over that tricky left and then through that long right-hand sweeper, keeping our eye on Stroll in our mirrors as we head into the next braking zone before we head into the final chicane. And so you have a little bit of lockup coming in that corner, and that allows Stroll to really catch up on us, and now we're going to have a real problem, as he is already on our tail even through the DRS activation zone, and he's going to get by us well before the pit lane even rejoins the track. So we are going to tuck back into his slipstream and try and stay tight into the braking zone of turn 1. But here we go, we're going to jump ahead to lap 28. After that little battle there on lap 19, we lost contact with him. As you can see, that dot's way ahead. And there is our first DNF of the day. Alex Albon is out of the session. And you see George Russell way back there, 9 seconds off the pace of us. And we are about 4.5 off of the pace of Lance Stroll here. So really this latter half of the race has really just kind of settled into a bit of rhythm. Stroll finally kind of took off. He's showing again that for whatever reason his late race pace is phenomenal. He always seems in the last quarter of the race, as his second set of tires starts to age, and well, everybody's final set of tires starts to age, he really just opens up a huge gap. As you saw, we were about 9 seconds behind him crossing the line, when only 5 laps before we were 4.5 off. So we managed to lose almost a full second a lap after battling side by side with him for 3-4 laps at a time. As we get ready to head into the last main straightaway, the last final sector of this race. You see the crowd behind as we come down this nice long straightaway, all by our lonesome, not even a hint of our teammate George Russell in the back. As we come down into our last run through the hairpin, this week's winner was actually the Red Bull of Pierre Gasly, and they 1-2'd with Max Verstappen taking second place. Championship leader Lewis Hamilton actually came third, as we dial our way down through this last little sector and set ourselves up to come down the final straightaway and cross the line. Locking ourselves in at P17, not quite the result we were hoping for.
Shame about the result, but I know you gave it everything. We'll come back stronger next time.
Knew we were going to be in for a battle, having to take a bunch of new parts, but not quite the result we wanted.
It was a magnificent race and a drive right out of the top draw to take the win for Red Bull today. Anthony Davidson, what helped them deliver this result, do you think?
Well, I know it's a bit of a boring answer, but the truth is they simply had the best speed package on the day, and a driver who knows how to take advantage of that. It doesn't matter how much time you spend poring over the stats and planning strategies if you can't keep the pace, and our winner today showed they could do both.
Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sport that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win. And now let's take a look at the driver's standings. It's a great result for Lewis Hamilton, who moves further ahead at the top of the table. Now let's discuss, Ant, who would you say is a contender for driver of the day?
My driver of the day was Devon Butler. He did an amazing job pushing through the field, cementing his growing reputation for ruthlessly running down those top positions.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes continue to extend their lead. Meanwhile, Renault move up the table with another strong performance this weekend. Well, that was certainly an incredible weekend of racing. Be sure to join myself and Ant for more exciting Formula One action soon.
Amazing performance out there. I'm sure you're pretty happy with that. Devon did much better in today's race than he did in qualifying. Were you expecting that?
I mean, you can never count him out. That's why I'm glad I can rely on my team to keep me updated on where he's at. But he's been way ahead of us.
You gained a lot of positions during the race, didn't you?
Yeah, the car was great. It was really sticking to the track. The aero felt pretty fantastic.
You had a close battle today, didn't you?
I mean, we're both pushing each other to be the best drivers. We're on the same team.
Appreciate your time.
It wasn't much of a battle, aside from the first, 2 laps. Alright, so here we are back in the garage one more time as we check out our points hauls from the race. Now, luckily, we did achieve our team goal. We won't be getting those rewards yet. We will get them after the next race when that 2-race goal is up, but we have a good solid chunk of R&D points to play around with. So we will certainly be doing everything we can to make good use of those. Hopefully have some good upgrades going into Monaco, which is a big race for us. Obviously, we typically gain rep through the practice sessions, lose rep during the race because we're coming towards the back of the field. But that's just kind of how it goes when you're driving with a back of the field car. But that's what we signed on for, and that is you know, what we're just trying to constantly make improvements on. This one was, I'd say this race weekend was about a 50-50. We took a step back in our final race result, but we did improve in our qualifying result.
Looks like one of your rivals has also been invited to a historical event. This could be a good opportunity to play up your rivalry for the press and expand your reputation.
And as I said before, we will do all those challenges. I'm not recording them as of yet. And we're going to just kind of take a peek at our messages. Yeah. What's Lucas got to say about us? Good race for Quimby. I'm pleased to see him doing well. What kind of teammate would I be if I wasn't? Seriously, they're one of the most committed drivers in this competition. And then what does our old rival, Devin Butler, who we were not a big fan of back then. Quimby did much better in the race than qualifying. Well, technically we did better than qualifying, it's just we took grid penalties. So that one I'm not even going to bother reading into too much. Because yes, we started the race in 20th, but we qualified 15th. And so technically we went backwards from our qualification. So here we are in R&D. We are going to repurchase the intercooler positioning upgrade because, well, we really need it. And that'll be essentially a guaranteed minor because once it fails once, you repurchase it for more R&D points, and then it's a guaranteed completion. So now we're going to start to look. We've gotten a good chunk of downforce upgrades in, but we're still getting beaten down the straight lines even with that strong Mercedes engine. So here we are. We're going to do the streamlined suspension arms there to help with a bit of drag reduction. We got about 500 points remaining, and we are going to put our first upgrade into our engine upgrade path. You know, we've been pretty solid on it, but it's one we can afford, so we may as well keep it going. We're still right there with Mercedes. You know, we got a good start running the same power plant, but hopefully with the upgrades that are coming in at Monaco, we can close that gap even a little further. But as you see, Toro Rosso is our first opponents to go up against, and then Alfa Romeo is really our next ones to chase down. And so we're still one of the only teams without points on the board at this point. Hopefully we can change that at the next race, Monaco. If we can really turn in a good qualifying position, we can basically just fend our opponents off the whole time. But that is the end of what was unfortunately a bit of a disappointing Spanish GP. We had the part failure, which definitely didn't help us out, but we knew we were going to be taking the penalties, and we just didn't quite have the pace during the race to be making up positions on a track that is tough to keep pace with and tough to make overtakes on. So hopefully, as we head to arguably one of the most famous Formula One tracks in the world, Monaco, another one of the tight, very scary city circuits, a very fun track to drive, very tough track to race on though. It's a very tight track with not a lot of passing opportunities, so it's really going to come down to just how well we can qualify at that track, and then hopefully, you know, hold position and see if we can turn in a better result than what we did at Baku in 14th. Well, join me next time as we head over to the tiny Principality for the next weekend in Formula One. Adios, amigos.